I would like to begin this evening with an acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Turrbal and Yagara people as the traditional owners of the land on which we meet tonight and pay my respects to their elders past and present. I acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded and that our First Nations are the beating heart of this land. Tonight is focused on our panel, their experiences and artistic journeys, but for those of you who are new to Speak My Language, I'd like to just give a brief summary. Speak My Language is a program that highlights the stories of people from multicultural backgrounds living well with disability in Australia. There are over 400 episodes available in 25 languages, and if you'd like to visit and check those episodes out, it's on the www.speakmylanguage.com.au website. This past year, I had the privilege of being a part of the production of some new video podcasts in 2 languages, Australian Sign Language, or Auslan, and Bengali, and these episodes are available on the Speak My Language YouTube and Facebook pages. In fact, you might notice that our lovely moderator Sara is in the Bengali episodes. And I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping and then pass it on to our panel. During this evening, you'll be given an opportunity to ask any questions you'd like to our wonderful panelists who will be introduced shortly. Please keep your questions until the allotted question and answer time, and to everyone on Zoom, please drop your questions in the chat. One of our panelists is joining us from London, and she'll be on the screen here. So everyone else on Zoom could please have their microphones muted and have their cameras off. Thank you all again for being with us tonight, and please give a warm welcome to our moderator, Sara, to take over the rest of the evening.
Thank you so much, Amina, and thank you everyone for being here tonight. It is fantastic to see your faces and your support for the Speak My Language session here tonight. So thank you and welcome to the panel session tonight. My name is Sara Shams, and I am so thrilled to be the moderator for tonight's panelists. Tonight we're coming together around a powerful theme, the role of community, creativity and self-expression, especially through the lens of disability. And it's not something that we often see or hear about, so I am so thrilled and proud to be here for this occasion tonight. We'll be hearing from 3 incredible creatives and community leaders and exploring why creating together matters, how art uplifts identity, and how we can celebrate and support those building inclusive spaces. Without further ado, please let me introduce you to our wonderful panelists. So we have Ranita all the way from London joining us. Okay. Ranita is a writer and community organiser from Mianjin, currently based in London. She writes mainly poetry, personal and lyric essays, and is interested in uplifting and celebrating underrepresented voices. In 2021, she founded UQ Minorities in Media Society, which aims to connect and uplift marginalised students at the University of Queensland and celebrate their artwork. She has organised open mic nights, art exhibitions, balls, design workshops, and has a Bachelor of Arts in Writing from University of Queensland. Can we have a round of applause for Ranita Thompson, please? Hello there, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much. And we have Justin Gange. Did I say that right? Gange. Sorry. Damn it. Should have practiced more. Justin Gange. Justin works for suicide prevention charity Mates in Construction. Justin was diagnosed with bipolar type 2 in 2012 and has shared his lived and living experience of suicide and mental illness around Australia and New Zealand over the last 11 years. He is a plumber by trade and has a patient wife of 30 years and 2 daughters through IVF. In 2019, he won the National Communities Matter Award at the Suicide Prevention Australia Awards ceremony, and was also the winner of 2021 Are You OK? Barbara Hocking Conversation Champion Award. He also won multiple awards for his bush poetry and slam poetry, and in 2023 released his first book of poetry called Connections, and has just released his second book, Holding Hope for Our Mates. This is an interesting one. He was a Brisbane Broncos mascot buck for 18 years and has been on many reality shows, including Australia's Got Talent, Holy Moly, and many more. He is an active member on the Queensland Mental Health Week Committee and the Logan Suicide Prevention Collaborative. He's passionate about raising awareness and making a difference in regard to suicide prevention and mental health in the construction industry, his local community, Queensland, and beyond. And last but not least, Next to me, we have Brooke Such. Such. Brooke is a Hungarian-Australian passionate advocate for inclusion in education and employment, dedicated to ensuring meaningful achievement for all. She is autistic and also has other neurodivergent conditions and a series of chronic illnesses that impact her daily life. As a PhD student, her lived experience research focuses on supporting neurodivergent students.
As like disabled, multicultural people, we don't have the same structural support that other people may have access to. So I found it really, really beneficial to just work with other people, and I've really kind of enjoyed that. Like for me, I've done things like poetry, open mics, and things like that. And like working together in a community for me can mean things like everyone kind of just supporting in any way they can. So like we have some people turn up and bring along some food because people have been setting up and they're hungry. We've had other people come along and help and welcome people at the door. So for me, creating in community is just so important because we can kind of all just help each other out and everyone kind of just gives what they can. So yeah.
And someone who's been to Ranita's events, I'll definitely say that just that joy of creating together and the joy of just celebrating differences and celebrating who you are, that's just something that's been really unique to those spaces that have been made specifically for this.
Yeah, I guess for me it's cathartic in the fact personally, writing, singing, acting, all the mascotting has been quite enjoyable for myself in terms of creating space when there is no space to be had. But the add-on is that you give permission for other people to create their space as well. And I think for me, as a mascot, as poetry, I connect with my words, I connect with my movements, but other people gain their own narrative from my words and movement to meet them where they're at. And so for me, it's about, it's a bit selfish, so it's creating a place for my well-being, but it's also giving space to others to create their own narrative and well-being as well.
Okay. No, absolutely. And that's the thing too, is I think being able to work, especially together, but even just within yourself to kind of process your experiences and to be able to communicate that to other people is so powerful. I think it's really beautiful because as an autistic person, sometimes I can have trouble expressing myself to other people, but then if I do go through poetry, if I do go through pictures, that connects with people in a much deeper sense. And I think especially when you're, I don't want to use the word different, but different to what their experiences are and their expectations, it's such a beautiful way to connect with even people outside of our communities.
Thank you. I think one key element and theme that I've picked up through all of your answers is creating those platforms, those environments where we feel included, comfortable, and a sense of belonging where we can actually be ourselves. And for me, my creative outlet is through fashion and clothes, and I am a model, and for me, that was something that I could have never imagined growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s because of my such very visible disability, which I tried to hide as much as I could. And that is an outlet for me where I am proud to be seen and creating space for others to want to be seen as well. So thank you. Thank you all you guys for the work that you do in your spaces. Can you share how creativity has helped you find your place and or embrace your difference?
Look, I guess, and just to give you some context, so I'm a proud Indigenous man of Aotearoa, New Zealand, of Parihaka descent. And I say proud Indigenous man with the fact that when I grew up in the 70s, my father grew up in the 50s, it was frowned upon to speak Te Reo, which is Māori language. And so we were disconnected to our culture because of the systems that were in place back then. And so, there's been a transformation in New Zealand around that connection. But so being disconnected to your culture and being disconnected through my illness and my diagnosis, it's been a lonely place. I'm 53, and And I was just saying, my circle is very small. It's my 2 kids and my wife, and that's my scaffolding. That's my team. And so it's a really small circle in terms of my ability to connect. But through my art, I have the ability to connect with other people through that. So it's a different sort of connection though for me in terms of like for me it's cathartic. I love stage. I love the fact that we're right beside a stage. I love I've been performing since I was 8. And I just love it. It fills me, and I wonder why. Whether it's because I can disconnect from all these, societal labels and norms and all those sort of things, and I have the ability just to be me in the character. And I think for me that's a big part of why poetry and music and acting, all those sort of things, actually contribute to my well-being, because they're my one connection to other people.
Ranita?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think poetry has been so useful because it's just so free and you can do whatever you want with the words. I think often because of my identity in different situations, I have to kind of mask or be different versions of myself. And often I feel quite segmented because in this situation I'm allowed to be different things. With poetry, I can basically just be all of the different parts of me at the same time. I can be loud, and I don't even have to talk about things like, I don't know, racism or ableism. It just comes out because of who I am, and I can talk about it in a way that suits me. So for me, poetry is just so freeing, and it just has let me explore different parts of myself.
I really love that. And I think that's something that probably resonates with a lot of us, where it's an avenue for us to be just ourselves, which sometimes is a difficult thing to do. So thank you for sharing that. Brooke?
I was so engrossed in the answers, I kind of high-key forgot I was meant to answer them too. It's about this. Yes, how you find yourself.
Yes.
Beautiful. So I vaguely knew, but I was just like, yes, absolutely. And I'm like, right, I'm meant to answer with these amazing people. But essentially, I think, again, a lot of it comes back to that form of just trying to explain myself and express myself in a way that people can understand. I think for a lot of autistic women especially, it's easy to come off that you're always complaining, you're always negative, or things like this, and it's not what you're trying to get across, and it's not necessarily having the skills to get that across. But when you kind of use art and metaphor and so on to change it around, the way that looks changes a lot and people can understand it a lot better. So for example, social skills, I have a short story where I wrote about the learning social skills was very similar to learning how to paint in a world where everyone can just paint like Monet and things like that just from birth. They can just do that. And, imagine the world where you're expected to be like that, and, how would you even begin to approach it? And the reason I did that is because I like art and I really enjoy art, and people all the time go, you're so talented. I'm like, no, I spend a lot of time, probably time I shouldn't be using on this. And something connected there when someone's like, oh, you're so social and friendly and your social skills are so good for an autistic woman. And I've gone, no, actually it's the same thing, like that process there. And there's even little things like you said before resonated with me, was like that losing connection to culture and so on. Because in my family, the last name has been a very big point of contention. Because when my mother was young over here, it was just something that, Erica sucks, and, really pointed her out as different in the regional kind of Australian areas and so on. And so kind of reclaiming that connection, even just through changing my name back to what was on the birth certificate and things like that. And people don't understand, like, wanting that connection or why that is. And I've also made a piece about the process. I've talked through with my mother, like the piece of, her deciding to anglicize her name, and then this choice, and then this choice, and that choice. And when people can kind of see the decisions behind not being yourself, it really helped them to actually understand what that feels like. And that's hard otherwise.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more with the reclaiming your identity and your power. For me, the word disabled is something that I have claimed or reclaimed, because it's not something that resonated with me, or it was a word that I was very ashamed of. because of how society saw and see people with disability. But now I'm saying I'm a proud disabled woman of color and I'm owning my space.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to reclaim, and I urge others to do the same.
Yeah, yeah.
Justice.
Oh, look, yeah, no, just all it all resonates with me. It's it's like you shouldn't have to reclaim it, but it is part of that process, I think for me, yeah, just understanding that who am I? I mean, I ran away from New Zealand as a 17-year-old, so I'm creating my own stories and legacies over here. But how is that connected to that history and to those sort of things? Even my last name's spelt wrong, so it's for me, it's like I wish I could take notes. I should have had me notes. Can I just borrow so there's lots of no pressure. But there's a lot of takeaways that I'm gaining from both all of you. So
Absolutely,
cool.
absolutely. All right, I might ask each of you a couple of questions if that's okay. Brooke, might start with you. Hot seat. Now, you've mentioned a little bit of your embroidery, which is so detailed and intimate. Can you talk about how stitching became a form of storytelling or reflection for you?
Yeah, so I've brought some items along. I was actually going to do embroidery while sitting here, but this kind of light has like a kind of freeze effect, and it's kind of good. I might need one of these in my PhD office, shining at me. But for me, it was. I think a lot of people can understand like
Hold the mic for you.
Thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, very good teamwork,
There you
community. But a lot of people can understand that wanting to reconnect with your culture and everything. And again, I can speak some Hungarian. I cannot put a grammatically correct sentence together to save my life. Things like the culture and so on was such a big part of my life. But then when you go outside, everyone senses their accents and things like that. And, I always mourn, for example, not having a better connection to the Hungarian language, and just, what access the language gives you back to your culture. And embroidery was actually a way that was kind of given to me as a way to reconnect again with culture. So essentially Hungarian families are a bit complicated, but my grandfather's brother's wife, who is still alive and is my grandma. She's my grandma. I was kind of talking to her about like, oh, I wish I spoke more Hungarian. I wish this, I wish this, I wish this. And she said, well, something my village used to do is that we would do things with 4 corners and each person would finish a corner between it. So every finished piece was kind of a group work effort. And so she actually started to give me, this isn't one of them, but she started to give me some pieces just like this, where she would have one corner was my grandmother, one corner was her, and one corner was her sister, and then the final corner was for me. And so obviously I practiced and things and got to this kind of level before I even touched it because I was so terrified. But it was just such a nice way to really, you sit there and you're doing the movements that they did. I was filling in, they left me so many things just like this with the outlines left for me and so on. And I could just really feel myself in engaging in the activities that they did and the ways that they did. And it's a really good way to, I guess, even just signify your culture, right? So I'm doing a complete disaster job on this over here. And the reason is that I didn't think of bringing a darker colored marker to actually mark it on. But for example, just I'm doing this denim coat with the embroidery there, and it'll look way better once the thing's off because the colors are going to pop. But, just little things like that where I can feel that I'm showing it off. And I've made that myself with the skills that my ancestors and my family have taught me. And it's been such, thank you.
No, that's
thank you. But it's been a really good tool, especially for ADHD, because I guarantee you, if I'm sitting in the audience, like all you lovely people looking really intent, I have no idea what you're saying. I'm like, do you think I'm doing a good job watching? That's all that's going through my head. It's like, am I nodding enough? Am I blinking enough? But doing an activity with my hands really grounds me, really brings me back and can let me listen to you. And, my listening just looks different to a lot of other people's. And for example, if you bring a stim toy and things like that, I encourage you to bring stim toys, but people will be like, why have you got a kid's toy? If you do embroidery, you're really cultured. And
Love.
And it's been a really great conversation starter because then I start to talk about them. And sometimes I have these pieces that were started by my grandmother and people like that. And it's just been a really good way to actually share that with people. And I've had a few people get interested in embroidery from it. So it's been really nice.
That's absolutely brilliant. And I think one of the things I love most about everything you've just shared is that sense of connection to your culture, but also to your family and your roots. And I love that 4 different people work on the same fabric. And that's just beautiful. That the whole concept is amazing and incredible. And thank you for sharing your artwork as well. And you mentioned that you only picked up embroidery because of an injury.
Yes.
Could you care to share more about that?
So I was a classic ADHD girl who I did sports. I did really good at shot put and discus.
Come on.
Yeah, I know, right? I still do keep active and moving, but I actually had a tumor in my left knee, which has caused a lot of issues. And, you can't quite get that pressure on it to do discus throws and things like that. And I was even just struggling a lot with the social and sensory environment around sports, the social expectations of how you had to sit and wait and the noises around, and it just wasn't the environment for me. So it's what I kind of said there before, where things like stims and so on were kind of the natural path forward to kind of keeping, managing my need to move and my need to just be active in different formats. So art was just a fantastic, fantastic way to fill that need, especially just in ways that are portable and I can bring with me. And, if I wasn't so soothed by these lights, I'd be like doing that right now. And it just gives a sense of accomplishment and so on, that's still moving forward. You're still getting better, you're still achieving. So it fulfills a lot of those same needs to me personally.
I think it is, wonderful sometimes when things that seem like negative in events actually lead to such positive and beautiful results as well. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Ranita, founding the Minorities in Media Society is such an empowering initiative and move. Why did you feel the space was needed and how has it changed you?
Yeah. Well, firstly, Brooke, that embroidery story was so lovely. Thank you for sharing that. Oh my gosh. Yeah, for me, UQ Minorities in Media Society, it kind of it came out of a place of me just not really feeling like I belonged at the University of Queensland. It's a very kind of old, established institution. And I guess just because of what it was, I felt during my first few years there that I just wasn't fitting in, and I wasn't just succeeding in the way that I would want to. I was feeling quite lonely, and from that I kind of was like, well, it can't just be me that's kind of feeling this way. And there were other established collectives at the university, like things like the Queer Collective, like the Disability Collective. There were different international student collectives. But for me, there wasn't really a space for people that kind of floated between multiple of those kind of categories. It was like sometimes I felt like if I was with the Indonesian students, I had to be the Indonesian version of myself only. And I found myself just kind of naturally quietening down the other parts of myself that are still there. So basically, by kind of creating UQ Minorities in Media Society, it became a place where we could all, like people that moved in between categories, could all just exist and be and kind of enjoy the things we love, like art and media, which is often, I think, for people like us, so important, growing up especially, to see those kind of representations of ourselves. So that's kind of where it came out of. And from there we started with really small events like movie nights and kind of little coffee catch-ups, and then it was just really exciting to see a community flourish out of those little events as well. And we went from doing things like that to running balls with like 300 people coming along and art exhibitions, and it became a space where people not only like experienced and shared media, but they also created their own. So that was just really, really wonderful to see. Yeah.
That is amazing. Honestly, that really is. And I think growing up, for me, something like that would have been so lovely to be a part of. And is that still continuing today?
Yeah. They're still, the community's still going strong. They're still running their events. And it's just been it's been really lovely more than anything to see the connections that kind of have lasted and continue to last out of that. I think that for people, you know, that maybe haven't felt like they fit in the past, like to finally have that community, I think it just naturally creates such a strong kind of bond. And I know for me, I've met some of my closest friends through that environment, because you feel like, oh, finally there's people that get it, you know. So it's just been lovely to see the relationships and friendships that have kind of come out of that and continue. So yeah.
That's brilliant. And what you said about the different identities, and often we have to be one or the other. And for me, taking that intersectional approach to every single thing that we do is crucial, including in that creative space. You know, for me, having a disability and being a woman of color, and being a woman and a woman of color can't be looked at in silos. It has to be looked at all together, because otherwise there's so many barriers that we face. And you know, so often we're marginalized based on all these multiple identities that they need to be looked at as one. And I love that you've created a space where these identities are celebrated as one. And that's really beautiful. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, look, it totally resonated. And there's one poem that I've written called "Not Enough," and one of the lines in it just you know, we press down who we are to assimilate, and that to me is, you know, I'm not defined by my diagnosis. And it's just one part of who I am. It makes, it's part of the whole, and what a cool whole, you know, like it's but when you're in a room, you tend to, you know, push down that part of you to be able to assimilate in the room or feel like you're accepted in the room. And so for me, that hit the mark.
Yeah. Did you want to add anything to that?
You're good.
No,
I'm good.
to that.
Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Well, Justin, actually,
Oh,
for you, if that's
okay.
okay. So honestly, when I was reading about you and everything that you do is so diverse and varied, absolutely love it. But one question, being a mascot, such a unique blend of performance and presence. How did that role help you connect with others or express yourself in unexpected ways?
Look, I like to ponder, and as a mascot, you're so I've been in like stadiums with, you know, tens of thousands of people, and all wanting connection. Have you ever thought that, you know, why is there so much hysteria around, you know, if your team wins, if your team loses? And as a mascot, I got the beauty to be able to look people in the eyes at a game and go, they're just desperate for connection. They're desperate to be wanted, to be accepted. And when the team's not traveling well, they get, you know, they blame the mascot. But it was a privilege to be able to wear a suit, and so I would go to hospitals, go to children's hospitals and things like that, and seeing people just really unwell, and you walk into a room as a 7-foot horse, and all of a sudden the barriers are gone. There's smiles on their faces. For just a nanosecond, they haven't focused on the challenges that they're going through, and what a privilege that is to be able to entertain, and behind the mask, the metaphor's not lost on me. You know, we all wear masks, right? You know, and behind my mask, I was battling, you know, my mental illness. I was battling highs, I was battling lows, and to be able to put on that mask and help other people navigate just a moment in time their challenges or the things that are their disconnection with the world in that one moment, that you can bring a smile, you know, just with a backside wiggle or whatever, you know. It was a gift for me, and I really learnt that I was accepted as a 7-foot horse. No one knew what colour I was. No one knew my heritage or my background or my diagnosis. They just saw a 7-foot horse there and they smiled. And I think, wow, when you break it all down to the every single day people are going through things, what if we turned up into a room without having the lens of, you know, what sex you are, what, you know, race, what challenges you hold, and just looked at life through the eyes of a child looking at a mascot. And to me, that really showed me that we've got a long way to come as a society. If we can accept a 7-foot horse, why can't they accept me? You know what I mean? And so for me, it was a privilege. It helped me through those tough times because I didn't need to show my face. I could just turn up and be grumpy on the inside, but still entertain a crowd. And it taught me that I have a long way to go in terms of how I see people. And so, yeah, I'm just a work in progress. But for me, that was the privilege of mascotting for those years.
Thank you for sharing that. I've got goosebumps, and I think I'll never look at a mascot the same again. But that is beautiful, and it's something that you don't really think about. But you're right, that the fact that is readily acceptable compared to someone like me with robot legs, for example, or other things. But yeah, thank you, and thank you for sharing that story with us as well. Would you like to add anything?
I was just going to say, it makes me think if any of you have heard about, there's a new cafe in Osaka, and it's called the Bear Paw Cafe, and it only hires people with quite extreme social anxiety, autism, things like that. And they don't answer the door, but they take all the orders with a bear paw glove, and then and some of the things they were saying were really similar. They're like, oh, today I don't have to be me. They're not judging me. They're here to see like the happy bear paw, and it was part of that. Your daughter might like that.
Yeah. I'm still
Did you want to add anything, Ranita? Just making sure you're yes. Awesome. So thank you so much for that. I've just got a couple more questions for all panelists, and this one really resonates with me. Is why is it important that we, people with disabilities from diverse backgrounds and any other marginalised identities, are the ones telling our stories? And this is the important part: how can allies help amplify but not speak over our voices?
Well, I'm being given to no pressure. Heavy statement.
Yeah.
Okay, the very expecting looks. All right. Well, I think any of us here with disabilities know the answer to that, but we're going to put it into words, which is essentially just like no one knows what we go through the way we do. Even people always look at me, for example, and they're like, oh, she's so friendly and she doesn't look autistic, and she's oh, she's got a chronic illness, like, but it's not that big a deal. They're not going to see that I'm down. After I go home, I'm down on the floor. That kind of thing. And that's just something where it's like, how am I going to share that with you? Like, what's the app Be Real? Like, I'm not going to be real. All my office mates and things. I'm just having a crash on the couch for like 3 hours to recover and things like that. And there's just so many things that are under the surface that when people look at it from that outside perspective, they just don't see it the same way that we experience it. The really classic one that I think a lot of people can relate to is the teachers. When I started teaching during the pandemic, which wasn't the plan, it was just I got stuck in Japan, and I was like, oh, gonna have to do something here. But it was really interesting because I remembered always growing up, oh, she's so naughty, oh, she's so difficult, she wants to be bad, she wants to be naughty, she's just being, defiant because she hates me personally, the teacher, and then for some reason they had personal beef with me, the 7-year-old, like, what's up with that? And I remembered when I went into this school, one interesting thing about this school is they accepted a lot of students who weren't accepted elsewhere, especially because of behavioral stuff. And when I say behavioral stuff, like Japanese naughty kids are like, they're not that naughty. But it was just so interesting how teachers would say, oh, look out for Haru, he's so mean and nasty. And I'm like, he's 6 years old, what are you talking about? And it was just so interesting that the connection I was able to have with this boy, his name's not Haru, but I've just given him that name. The connection I was able to have with that boy, that his mum gave me a really, really nice going away gift, because as soon as I met him, I've gone like, there's something more than I understand going on. And, he was going through his own personal things, very likely neurodivergent, just how he was relating to his peers and stuff. And just having someone who just wasn't assuming the worst from you from the very beginning made a big difference. And that was a big change in how I wanted to communicate with people who weren't disabled or who weren't queer and who weren't this, where I was like, how can I express that and give that to way that people can understand who haven't experienced it, who haven't lived it. And that's where art, can really simplify it, or you can really get that emotion, and you can really you can put people in your shoes in a way that me sitting and talking to you just won't do. Yeah.
Wow. There you go. That's, can I get the question in again? I got lost in your your response. Yeah. I'm thinking Haru, and then I've just gone off. Yeah.
I don't blame you. That was
Yeah.
Why is it important that we, people with disabilities, are the ones telling our stories?
Yeah.
And how can allies help amplify our voices and not speak over our voices?
Yeah. Good job.
There you go.
There you go. Look, and I think it's just that the older I get, you know how you lose. Well, maybe you don't. The older I get, the less I worry what people think about me. I think is an important one. But this is just me, so it's going to come out. So I'm an oversharer. Hi, I'm Justin. I'm an oversharer, and so I'll do that, in groups, and I'll share. I think we were talking about this before, that I own the challenges I've had. I own the choices I've made, the good ones and the not so good ones. I own it, and I'm actually okay. My face leaks every day, when I'm on a construction site with someone who's, going through their own challenges and grief and loss and all those different things, and their choices and relationship breakdown, all these different things. When I own my story, when I'm okay to share it, I feel it. In my head, it's me giving permission for other people to be transparent and authentic with their story as well. And I think, and I don't want to say, oh, all males don't talk. That's rubbish, because I talk. I get very tired of talking, but we will talk if the space is created. And so for me, it's about creating that space to say it's okay. And I will go on socials and go, hey, today's my crash day. I'm watching Blindside. I'm ugly crying. That's okay for me not being okay today. And I'll get everyone going, oh, you got to try this, you got to try that. And I go, no, this is me. This is me coping and dealing with my challenges, and that's okay. That's all I'm saying. I'm not here looking for some 1,000 heart signals and all that. I'm just here saying, this is me. It's not just Instagram Justin, where I show you all the highlight reels. Reels is a thing, is it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Again, I believe there's things like Instagram as well. So I'm quite old. But I just, for me to be able to articulate my story, my journey, in the hope that it gives permission for other people to share their journey, or to be real, to be authentic with their stuff as well, is how we get through the tough times. I've got my strategies, but sometimes other people's strategies is talking to me, and so giving them permission to do that is really important. And I'm not sure that I answered your question, but I feel a bit of time.
I think you did answer it.
Yeah, brilliantly, actually.
I was just going to add a sentence onto that, where it's like, it's coming from you, and then people who are also experiencing the same thing can just connect with people in a way they haven't before who are experiencing the same thing. So I was like, that's what I was picking up.
And I think what you said about creating that platform for people to be and share those stories and break down those misconceptions that men don't share and men don't talk and men don't feel things is so important as well. So thank you. And Ranita, would you like me to repeat the question?
Oh yeah, that would be great. Actually, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Why is it important that we, people with disabilities, are the ones telling our stories? And this last part of the question, I think we haven't answered quite yet, but that's okay. We'll circle back to that one. So yes, why is it important that we tell our own stories?
Yes. I really agreed with what Justin was saying about how when you're being vulnerable, it gives permission for other people to be. And I think that's such a wonderful thing. I think that I've really enjoyed like listening to other people read their poetry at like poetry open mics and kind of being there to bear witness to other people's experiences that haven't been shared before. I think so many of our stories are just kind of, we just haven't heard them. They've just been pushed aside. So I think to have a space where we can bear witness to other people telling their own stories is so powerful. And I think a lot of kind of inspiration can come from that because they're new, we haven't heard them before. So for me it's just been, yeah, telling your own story is just, it's just been, yeah, so amazing to hear. I don't know if I answered that, but yeah. Sorry.
You did, and I think all three answers touch on the fact that that lived experience or lived expertise is what really helps others feel seen, heard, represented, and a sense of belonging. So telling our stories means we're sharing how we feel, and Brooke, to your point about with Haru, not that his name was Haru, but with Haru, you using your lived experience and expertise were able to sense that there was something else happening, but you could also assist. And it wasn't someone who was naughty.
Yes.
It was the fact that he just learned or did things a little bit differently. And you were able to pick up on that because of your lived experience.
Yeah. Yeah. That's for the ally question.
Oh, yes. Yes, sorry, I forgot my second
I was getting
part of the
ready.
question.
I was getting ready.
Yes, so how can allies amplify and not speak over our voices?
As I steal the mic right now, just in minutes. No, well, I think a really big thing is art and, for example, professional life, they don't have to be that separate. I think sometimes something as simple as, like Teams channels are really, really boring. Pop a video of Justin's cool stand-up moments or something like that and just be like, hey, doesn't even have to be an awareness day because we're allowed to exist and be seen every single day.
Come on. Yeah.
Thank you. And things like that, but also even just being aware of and when I say share, it's like even if you yourself are disabled or have whatever, you don't have all of them, even though sometimes I look at my healthcare plan and I'm like, are you sure? I'm just like, we don't have all of them. So, and even just the way that people experience things within the one condition are so wildly different. Your experience is different to the next person who on paper has the exact same traits as you. And just, being conscious of amplifying that and seeking it out. If you go, oh my gosh, every single one of the romantasy books and fanfics on my phone right now are all written by white women, find one by a different type of woman. It's not that hard. And there's a lot of really good ones out there. I don't know. I don't read romantasy. I thought you'd get it. But they're out there. And they're amazing.
That genre before romantasy.
Romance fantasy. It's like vampire boyfriend kind of thing. Yeah. Dragon boyfriend kind of. Yeah. It's really important cultural. I'm sharing my culture with you. I actually don't read these books, which is why I can't recommend any authors. I shouldn't pick a different genre. But like they're out there, and just being conscious of it, that you just like a great thing. I can see some other people from Minorities in Media Society, they do book swaps and they have a little look at who the author is of the books. And it doesn't have to be, I'm sad and gay, the book, which a lot of the books are. It's so real, right? But just books written by gay people that have these like I say as part of the queer community, it's like queer people who those themes just fit in there and they flow and they're just such an integral part, even if that's not what the story is.
It's just everyday, normalizing everyday representation.
Come on.
Yeah.
And honestly, you've got your weekly update, your emails and things like that. Literally just be like, I found this cool art piece, I found this cool TED talk, this stand-up, this, just pop the link in. Like,
I love that suggestion.
All right. Yeah, look, I'm seeing the sign. Yeah, I totally resonate. Look, I used to be an AUOK ambassador, and like we can turn things into events. Like we don't mind an event, but it isn't this year's campaign, and I'm no longer a ambassador, but I follow it still. Is it doesn't have to be the 10th of September. It doesn't have to be Mental Health Week for us to check in. Like my story is the same 365 days a year for the last 53 years, not just in October and not just in the 10th of September. So to be able to say, hey, look, our lived in living experience is that we are living it day by day. And so conversations should be day by day, from all parts of, and yet here we are having an event talking, you know what I mean? So, I'll shush now. But that's my thought.
Thank you. And Ranita?
Yeah, I think for me, like working with allies, I found it really, really useful when allies are able to think critically about their own identity and their privilege in the same way that often marginalized people naturally think about themselves. And I've worked really well with allies when they do that thinking and they think about when they are bringing privilege to a situation and are then able to kind of amplify other people's voices or make sure other people are in the room as well. So that's been a way for me to work well with them.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I think for me, really quickly, I guess one example I can share is I remember we were once staying in a group having a conversation with some friends, and then someone said something about my disability that just didn't sit quite right with me, just generally. But my friend just quietly said, actually, this is how you say it, or this is how you talk about it. And there was no drawing attention to it. There was no hoo-ha, don't do this, don't do that. It was just a simple correction that made me feel like my friend understands me, understands my disability, and hold space for that as well. And for me, that normalizing authentic understanding was really, that for me is what an authentic ally is. So that was really beautiful, that experience. So thank you. And thank you once again to all of you, Ranita, Justin, and Brooke, for sharing such honest and powerful reflections and your stories and your vulnerability here this evening. And I think tonight's conversation has been a reminder of how deeply creativity, community, and self-expression are woven into our lives, especially for those of us navigating the world through the lens of disability and other marginalized intersectional groups. Your stories, insights, and art have truly made space for those of us to feel seen. So thank you. Now, we're actually going to continue this creative journey with a live performance from Ranita, a poet whose words have the ability to move and shift rooms. I'll hand it to you, Ranita. Thank you so much.
Hi. Okay. I've got two really short poems that I'll share with everyone today. And they're both kind of just based on little experiences I've had. So yeah, the first poem is called Stockies 2019. Do you remember when the lights were flashing, pinks, yellows, strobing, and my chest was shaking, and the sweaty body's aching, and we're breathing the same air, choking, and I feel a vodka-induced headache kick in. Out of the sea of bodies he emerges, laughing, then pointing, next throwing his gin and tonic at me. The ice cubes hit my skin with little thuds. Do you remember when you screamed at him to get lost and grabbed my sugary hand and pulled me into the middle of the room, whispering, "Come dancing"? Do you remember the music fading and you twirling me under your arms and us holding each other, laughing? So yeah, that's the first one. Oh, thank you. So the second one is called Bits and Pieces. Broken pink suitcase with a black ribbon. I wrap my fingers around the handle to steady. Train sways. Rings from mum, an uncle in Samarang, and mum again, clink against the metal. I catch a glimpse of myself in the window's reflection. Fringe, a miss. Star hoodie from the outlet mall. Outside, Scottish fields of green blue. But in flashes, I just see me. And yeah, that's the other one.
Wow. Thank you so much, Ranita, for those wonderful pieces. Thank you so much. All right, we might settle back in. How was that break? Actually, can I get a show of hands of who is enjoying themselves this evening, please? Oh, yeah, thank you. It was a little bit late raising that one. Excellent. Thank you so much again for being here tonight. And I hope you've had a moment of rest, a little bit of a reset. And now we're actually going to be giving the floor to you for some questions for our panelists this evening. And we can also see if there's any questions online, but if you guys have any questions in the room, we can start off with that. Oh, first question.
Yeah. Yes, please.
There you go.
I'm not the best person to be moving around.
Yes, I got you. Start turning back.
Yeah, a really voice, but anyway, make sure that everybody hears me. I was just like listening, like all of you guys, and just like as the evening progressed, my heart was getting like a bigger and bigger, and I felt just like a personal proud of all of you, and how you overcome all of your difficulties, and the people you became, and especially when you said that you own your disability, and now you are proud of your disability and you're not ashamed of disability, which is so fantastic. But I know that, or I believe, I don't know, but I believe that all of you had a long journey, throughout your childhood or early young age to come to that stage. And when you say, like, I'm 53, I don't care anymore what people say, But I'm pretty sure when you were in a grade 4 in a primary school or grade 5, it was a different story, So my question is, from your experience as people with disabilities who went through their journey, what would be the things that we as an adults and a community and society should do for those kids in their young age, so that they don't go through the same journey as you felt and all other people with disabilities, because some of them might not end up where you are, because you were strong people, you probably had a great support around you, or whatever, or personality to come. But many of them don't, many of those kids. And how can we help those young people going through the same journey as you do and make it easier for them using your experience and experience of other people who went through the same journey?
There you go. Oh, look, wow, it's what a thank you for that question. And can I just offer just a layer of safety in terms of, I do speak of my own journey, not only with my diagnosis but also my suicidality. So if anything I say today impacts people, please come and talk to me. I don't want to do any damage, but I just want to be pretty vulnerable and transparent with my journey. So you are right. My life's been littered with unwellness and attempts. But the fact is that I always have that survivor guilt too. Why do I get a second chance when so many other people don't? And so I acknowledge that. And for me, I had the privilege on Friday of sharing my poetry with 100 grade 5s and grade 6s. And I had the ability to say, hey, every one of us has a story. Every one of us has a journey. And for me, the cathartic process of my story and my journey is writing it through poetry. Cathartic for myself, but it actually helps other people as well. And so I think I would never hear anything like that when I was growing up. And here I am, big buffy plumber, talking about my feelings, that I cry, and that's healing my body, and that I have a mental illness, and okay, sorry. And so for me, it's about creating that space for our young people. I love the fact that my daughters knew that I had mental illness from when they were born. They navigated hospitalisation and stuff like that, and so it's quite easy for our family to talk about it, and and both sides. They'll tell me, and so for me, it's about creating that space. It's about owning it, but it's also about saying, hey, you can get through this as well. And so it's I don't know if I've answered your question, but I think for me it's just about creating the space for people to share their stories as well. And I said that even young people have a story, and to be given the space and to be able to articulate that story, for me, yeah, I think it's beneficial.
Thank you again for sharing that, because I think for a lot of people, especially in these kinds of intersections, suicide is not an uncommon pathway for a lot of us to just at least consider, and it's definitely been a little bit of a part of my story. And if I think back to the things where that was part of my story much more in high school, and I think about the things that the adults who were meant to protect me did. And some of the really big key things were, again, what I said earlier, like the good faith. People listen differently, people do things differently, people don't always intend things the way you want. If you take people in good faith, that's already such a huge step to just, again, if I think back to my teaching days, this boy suddenly started acting out. What's going on? It took me 3 minutes to figure out there's a new baby at home and he's kind of lashing out because, it's not getting the attention he's used to. Wow, there's always something to dig into there. But I think, again, the amount of shame that comes to just being different in a society comes back, and what shame does to disconnect you, not just from your own identity, but from people who share that and who can be your community, like what we've been talking about today, is so important. Because in my case, I was diagnosed quite young, actually. And I actually didn't find out till I was about 23 years old that I was autistic. And a really big reason for that was just the huge shame, specifically within the Hungarian community. My mum had just gotten divorced, and they were all, so this is the accent. I said to someone earlier, sometimes I slip into the Hungarian accent because that's just how we talk at home. But no, she's not disabled, she's just stupid, she doesn't have male role model, she needs father. She had a father, it's your fault that you've left, she's got no men, nobody to look forward to, that's why she don't act right. It was the kind of mentality that people not my actual aunts, but the auntie types in the community was saying. And I just think about how much that label, to put it, would have actually helped me understand myself, meet people like me, and just understand those kinds of connections. And I think I bring up that cultural thing. I think sometimes that connection with the culture can make it so much harder to do that. And so at the same time, expecting, what's the word? I'll be open, be proud and so on, but also not expecting people to perform that for you, because sometimes we don't know what the other cultural and other backgrounds are there.
Definitely. Ranita?
Yeah, I think I agree with Brooke in terms of how communities has been really important for me. I think for me, a big shifting point of when I started to feel better and started to feel more confident in myself was when I met people like Brooke and met people that were kind of similar to me, and they started to make my lived experiences feel more normal, because I think that, like, when you're surrounded by people that are maybe not like you, sometimes you feel like you're the odd one out. But surrounding myself with people like Brooke and like made me realize just how normal like things about me were, and I was able to connect more deeply with people when they had similar things to me. I think that was a moment when I started to kind of feel better. So yeah.
Definitely. And that certainly resonates with me as well. And for me, it happened much later in life. So I was probably in my early 30s when I embraced my disability. And a lot of that is the fact that I didn't see people like me growing up in either the Australian culture or my South Asian culture. And disability is something that is still quite stigmatized in South Asian cultures, where it's something to be ashamed of, don't really talk about it. And with a physical disability, hide it as much as you can, mask, whatever it may be. And I think for me, that really gave me a sense of I don't belong in either space, that diaspora, but also I was so different from my cousins who I thought I'd be similar to, but the traditional clothes growing up didn't fit me the way it fit them. And in school, I was obviously so different. And to be honest with you, through primary school, I didn't care. I was a happy kid. I was running around on my knees playing sports. But when I got to high school, that's really when it resonated with me that, yes, I was different. And people started making me feel different.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me through to my early 30s, which is quite wild. And it didn't happen overnight, the change in me. And really the one question that for me impacted how I saw myself is, what message am I sending to others like me, or parents with children with disability, or kids with disability? What limits am I setting for myself that's also going to be setting it for themselves? So I didn't have good answers for those questions. And I was like, you know what? What am I holding myself back from?
Yeah.
And to answer your question, how can parents help children? I think normalizing differences, normalizing disability, normalizing how we treat others. You know, often I get in shopping centers, oh, mum, look, robot legs. And I love that. I love when kids say things like that because they're not coming from a place of hate. It's curiosity and it's innocent curiosity. And for me, it's saying to them, yes, I have these legs. I was not born with the legs that you were, but they help me do everyday things that you do, like shopping. And when we say it in those terms for children, they learn that, oh, okay, cool. Thanks for that. Okay, bye. So really, that's what it is, normalizing, educating your kids, not putting disability or differences behind a door because it's shameful, because it's not.
Yeah.
We just do things differently.
Yes.
Chat. Oh, yes. There's a question from the chat.
So we've got a question here, which may be related to some of the things Justin has touched on, but of course everyone is welcome to answer. And the question is, how do we continue to tell our stories and how will this help lower the suicide rate in Australia and beyond? Any tips and tricks, especially for those with lived experience and who have lost siblings or loved ones to suicide, or for the culturally and linguistically diverse communities? Can I add to that question? So my question's almost exactly the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Just the only other part of that I wanted to add was how do you personally, and please let me touch on this if you genuinely feel it, deal with survivor's guilt? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to answer that question with that. It is tough, and it's not lost on me, and I don't have any answers for that because I'm still trying to work it out for myself in terms of the survivor's guilt. But I did want to tap onto the authenticity of your story. Every story is important. It's important to share your truth, and I think for me, I've learned how to do that safely for myself. I think that's important, number one. And the other important thing is how can we share our stories safely for those that hear it too, and understanding from culturally, linguistically different backgrounds that we all come from. It's different for everyone, and so I understand my story. While it might resonate with some people, it won't resonate with everyone. But I don't try and pigeonhole it. I just try and be authentically me, and so I do that gently, understanding that that my experiences. And I was just saying before, I talk about this stuff every day. I sit I sit with people in crisis every day, and my pain is not the same as your pain. It's not the same as their pain. And so being mindful of that and mindful of the language I use around that, saying, I understand. No, I could never understand someone else's pain. And so just for me, it's about being authentic, but holding enough gentleness to seek first to understand before being understood, I suppose is the classic quote. And so for me, as when I share my story, I share it safely for myself. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to keep doing it. But as equally important, safe for the room, understanding the diversity that's in the room and being present with that and saying it's okay not to be perfect. Like I don't trip myself up trying to be PC everywhere, but I want to make sure that I show the room respect by acknowledging that everyone's experience is different. So I'm not sure that I've answered the question, but for me, it's about care and respect, and holding those stories very gently for myself and for other people.
Thank you, Justin, for that.
So beautiful and so right. And I think I'll also just add on that element that, art is healing.
Yeah.
You know, taking even when you're not including your story, just taking that time to center yourself and ground yourself and create something. There's so much power in creation. And then if you do want to use that for your story, it's exactly what you said, that reflection, that being able to see it from a different angle and how healing that is, that I think there's a lot of potential in art as healing as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Thank you.
That was said really beautifully. You guys go. You guys keep going. Oh, sorry.
Another question from the chat?
Yes, sure.
Did anyone here have a question? I'll come to you right now. So we've also got, I apologize, we won't be able to get to every single one, so I'm just going to someone different. Not necessarily a question, but a comment. And it says, it would be great to see disability, diversity, and inclusion in Australia's education curriculum. Sorry, from day one and continue throughout. If anyone wanted to respond to that. And I'll also mention that we have Jessica Byrne from Canberra who said, big shout out to Justin. Did we want me to repeat that? Sorry.
No.
Okay.
This
is about the education curriculum and having that representation there.
I don't know if you'd like to take that one, Brooke, for education curriculum.
I do agree, but at the same time, it would have to be done right, because I have seen like diversity inclusion things where, you know, the presenter gets up there and, you know, they're part of, for example, the queer community or something, but then they'll get up there and they'll say things like, oh, bi people don't exist. They pick a side eventually. And I'm like, you mean a partner? What are you talking about? And I'll always remember going to that training and where someone said that. And even though they're part of the community, they're not necessarily the right person. So it's, you've got to be very thoughtful and mindful of that. And so I agree it should be in there, but more importantly, you need diverse teachers. You need, you know, teachers with disabilities, you know, teachers of all different, well, every different shade, every different color, every gender, whatever, you know, that reflects our actual society and the people in them. And sometimes even if people, you know, don't want to be teachers, just, you know, inviting in speakers, you know, normalizing it, just, and again, not just, not just, you know, that one wheelchair user who comes to talk about car safety that every single high school has had. You know, you need to actually have them talking about, I'm a scientist and I do this. I just also happen to use a wheelchair, you know, different ways to bring people in, and being really conscious about how we have that representation and normalizing for schools.
Yeah.
My boss uses a guide dog, and I'll always remember we went to Parliament House and we've come out of a room and there was a whole school of like year 4 kids or something really tiny. And obviously it's because of the dog, right? But they've all just gone as they've walked past. And I just think to myself, I'm like, they're just going to assume he's the Prime Minister. Like, you know, they're just, you know, who else would be here in a suit, right?
That's it.
And I just think for, you know, that's like what, 50 kids who are just in their mind, politicians sometimes have guide dogs, you know, it's just, it normalizes and changes a lot. Yeah.
I can't articulate better than that. That's
Yeah.
So
That's really great. Do you have anything to add to that, Ranita?
I just agree with Brooke. I think people sharing lived experiences in school is what I remember most and I think was most impactful. We had a few speakers during my time in school come in and talk about mental health. And I remember that, like, hearing people's actual life stories, that was what made the biggest impact for me. So, yeah.
I completely agree. And I also agree with you, Brooke, that it needs to be done well and correctly, because my memory of someone coming to talk to school was very different. I had a gentleman who was an above the amputee just like me, but his was a result of getting drunk and falling onto the train tracks, which was, you know, if you get drunk, this is what you end up with, which was a very negative view of the same disability as me. And I remember children, I was in year 7, like, I was like, no, I didn't get drunk and that's what happened. I lost my legs, guys. That's not what happened. That's not what happened.
Yeah, well, I was 2.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just a wild child. But no, so that's sort of, you know, that's the flip side of having this sort of education pieces that are not done thoughtfully and the way it should be, you know, using lived experience, but in a positive manner.
Yeah, because that's exactly what I mean. Is it's like the wheelchair user who's like, don't get drunk and drive, kids. There's a speaker, and I feel so bad I forgot her name, but she was a teacher and she uses a wheelchair, and someone was like, "Oh, when are you going to give us your speech? Your speech." And she's like, "I'm here to teach you math." And you're like, "What do you mean?"
That's right.
Because it's like, no, last year the guy in the wheelchair came and talked about car
Yeah,
safety, the
yeah,
exact same thing.
Exactly. So yes.
Yeah.
Shall we finish? I think we'll be finishing with this question here.
Okay.
Yes.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing. And I would like to know, as like when I moved to Australia like only 2 years ago, and I realized that like in the past I was majority working in expat community. I thought it shouldn't be that challenge and coming to Australia I still speak English. But I did found that in the past I was the voice of so many organizations. But when I came here, I suddenly cannot share on social media anymore. I found I don't know how to share, and I wasn't confident with my English and with ChatGPT, and I found ChatGPT is not authentic of me, and I kind of battling all around, but I just never share anymore. And I'm curious, like, when did you decide, like, what triggers you to speak up your story that you think it's very important to share your story?
I'm going to give one quick sentence. The really big thing is what you're feeling now. You're not the only one. I'll never know that feeling in Australia, but as someone who has like lived abroad and so on, a lot of people really, really understand. And speaking up about it, you might be able to connect with them.
Yeah, and I think the key is that connection. And again, I think for me, it's funny. I've had a lifetime of the challenges. Yeah, why all of a sudden, in 2013, did I decide that I want to share my story? And I think for me, it came in hospital. See if you can resonate with the understanding behind this. And I had a lot of friends that I've developed over the years, mostly tradies, that were visiting me in the psych unit, and they saw the happy-go-lucky Justin and life of the party and all that sort of stuff. So they all came in with the question why, and and I just didn't have the energy to cover up anymore. I think that's all it was. It was an energy thing, and my filter was low and my energy depleted, and so I became very transparent in that moment. And what I experienced in that moment is I began to share my story. Was it gave permission for other people to share theirs, not by way of competition, but by way of them doing. I don't know how to relate, but tell you that I've experienced X, Y, Z, and for me, that was the moment. I said, if we can do this in this setting, uncomfortable tradies talking to another unwell tradie, transparently, simply because I didn't have the energy to cover up my story, then what could we do beyond these walls? And so your story, when you get to that point to share it, you'll find it will resonate with so many other people, and particularly people that have gone through the same or similar circumstances that you've gone through in terms of coming to a new country. And so for me, it was just a moment in time where I didn't have the energy to pretend and pretend like everything was okay. But I think that's different for everyone. So it's about finding your voice, but knowing and just like Brooke was saying, knowing that there are people out there who not knowing exactly what you're going through, but will resonate with that similar experience. And so, yeah, that's my encouragement to you, is that there are people out there that need to hear your story. There are people out there that need to know that it's going to be okay. And only you can do that. Only, I resonate with some people, not everyone, but you'll resonate with some people as well. And so, yeah, everyone in this room's got a story. And it's about how we share it when we do that.
Yes, I really got one.
I'll just add a really practical tip. So again, as someone who's spent a bit of time in those kind of global spaces, I know quite a few friends who on LinkedIn, they'll have like English underneath or something at the first sentence, and then they'll do the post like in their native language and then like the English underneath. And I've seen quite a few of my friends do that, and it's just like they just feel confident that at least in some format they've gotten their words out really authentically, and that might be like a helpful practice for you to like play with as well. Just something that I've seen work really nicely.
And I haven't seen that. It's sort of like almost like a post description, you know,
Yeah.
describing in the post, but using your own words and language and what you feel comfortable with, plus English.
Yes.
That's really great. Thank you for that. Ranita, would you like to add anything?
Sorry, I had a little bit of trouble hearing the question. Do you mind like summarizing it?
Oh, sorry, yes. 1 second.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I summarize or you want to
So like when is the time that you decide to speak up and you don't want to hold it back anymore? Like you want to speak out your voice and then more people to listen and humanity people in.
I think it's about when did you decide it was your time to speak up and found your own voice and sort of what that journey was like for you, Ranita.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry, did you Lily?
I heard the end of that. Yeah, all good.
Okay.
Yeah. I think for me, it kind of just started by like speaking up with 1 or 2 people that I was really close with. And I think from there, I kind of gained confidence. So I picked a few people that were similar to me that I felt really comfortable with. And I found that once I started sharing with them, I gained a lot of confidence. And from there, I kind of slowly expanded it. But that's kind of what I was doing.
That's a really great practical tip as well, actually. Starting where you're comfortable and then building from there as well.
Yeah, I went for a really similar thing as Ranita, and what I found is every time I was terrified to say it, and I'd say, you know, something, you know, mental health or imposter syndrome or something, and like 80% of the audience was like, and then there'd be like every single time there'd specifically be like a first year university girl or something who'd be like, wait, that's so cool. And they'd like kind of come talk to you and they're like, but do that, but I'm not like you, and but you are my bestie. And like just those little conversations were really encouraging, because even when people don't come up to me, a lot of people will still resonate with that. Like I think we're never alone like that. And I think the more open we are about things, the better we are for everyone.
I couldn't have said it better. So thank you. Really, yeah, absolutely. And thank you so much for that very generous and open and vulnerable discussion. I also want to say, obviously, we've touched on a lot of sensitive topics tonight. Please reach out if you would like some information resources to and Justin as well. Post session, if you'd like any helpful tips, not tips, sorry, but any contacts or anything like that, post session.
Can I do a quick Eddie Arts? Oh, yes, please. Also, I did talk a bit about art as healing, and I think it's really important that a lot of you know that the NDIS has taken art therapy off the roster. And so as with some of my art, I've partnered with Eddie Arts, which is a foundation created in honor of Eddie, who's, oh gosh, I've got a bit overwhelmed. Thank you. Eddie, who was a young autistic boy, and they're partnering with local artists with disabilities, and the money is going towards the local artist as well as providing art therapy to the community, which I think we can all really understand is so important. We've done the first sticker set there. I was the first artist to collaborate, but they're always looking for more, and I really recommend you check them out and support them. Some people are from Eddie Arts today, so yeah, that's my little example stickers on my laptop. That one's not mine, but still. I've had this for like 4 days, and I'm like,
I love that. Actually, we're at a segment where you are meant to be sharing some more of your stitching as well, Brooke, if you would like to.
I think I'm actually okay. Just I'm a bit like too light in the face.
And you've already shown us your stunning, gorgeous artwork. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
That could be my show and tell instead.
There you go.
Okay.
And we can provide some information and links to the Eddie Arts post session as well.
We have some flyers if you like.
Oh, there's some flyers in the room as well. Thank you so much. And now I'm thrilled to have Justin share a piece with us from one of your work.
Let me get that. Sorry, excuse me.
Sorry.
Again, and this particular poem I wrote is just to acknowledge the storytellers that we have in the room. Every single one of us owns that story, and so it's my shout out to the storytellers. I don't mind a bit of slam poetry, and I actually shared this in the Sydney Opera House. So this is a fun one, but more my heart to speak to the room. Now I've got to remember how it starts. Here's a shout out to some legends. It's long been overdue. To you slamming storytellers who use your gift to help a few. I want to take this moment to thank you for your heart, for what you do is priceless. You set yourself apart. You often tread the depths of the tough stuff in your life. You tell of hurt and heartache, of trauma and of strife. But then you speak of your redemption, the things that turn you around. You shine a light into that darkness with the hope that you have found. You take us on a journey from every corner of the globe, passing on your lessons to each awaiting lobe. You motivate and encourage, you plant desire within our heart, reminding us of our humanity and how we each must play our part. But there is no notoriety, no competition here, for every story is different and every one of us is sincere. But when the dust is settled and the sword's back in its sheath, when the story's over, make sure that you debrief. Self-care, my friend, is number one to ensure a healthy stay. So be kind to you and make some plans to get you through the day. Now, to those who use the services of us people with our please consider us with compassion, for we are not a commodity. We are not a short distraction or a mere 2-minute slot. We are living, breathing humans who've survived a major clot. We are people who, despite our past, will share our lessons learned with the hope that one may hear, one life that may be turned. We aren't a tick within a box or an event held once a year. We offer value immeasurable to everyone who hears. Every one of us has a story, a rocky road we traverse through. So please, please, please be kind to all the storytellers. For those tellers are me and you. Cheers, Tam.
Just add the
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And as we wrap up this powerful evening, I want to thank each of our panelists once again for showing up with so much heart, truth, and creativity. Can we please have another round of applause? Thank you to everyone behind the scenes as well, and I will give you, and I'll definitely sometimes as well, thank you, and for being part of tonight. And let tonight be a reminder of the importance of shared storytelling, community care, and creative expression, especially for those voices who have too often been unheard. Please let's keep making, sharing, and showing up together. Thank you.
Thank you so much to our panelists. Thank you so much, Ranita, for joining us from afar early in the morning. And huge thank you to Sara for moderating our discussion. Completely agree with what you just said about this whole night. To me has reminded me of the power of story, the power of community, and the power of authentically and courageously sharing. And I just want to encourage everyone here to also share a piece of work of one of these amazing people. Find them online, share their amazing art or poetry or whatever it is, content, because I think one of the things that has come up several times throughout the discussion is the shame and the stigma that can be attached to these stories. And if we all can share these stories, we are taking that away. We are able to dismantle that shame by us all being a part of platforming artists and the talent that we see here. So thank you again. Thank you everyone who's been with us. And can I ask a favour of everyone who's joined us to please connect with the Speak My Language comms pages. And we are going to be sharing some of the recording of tonight. When you see that come out, we would love it if you would distribute that, because the quality of the conversation tonight has been phenomenal. So I would love to see this be shared far and wide. So I would love it if you would help us to share this with other people.